Hello and welcome. I'm Master Lama Rasaji, and this is Rasaji Speaks. In today's episode, we're going to title The Magic of Surrender and Overcoming Death. The Magic of Surrender and Overcoming Death. Well, that's a good one. That's a good subject, you know. I remember in 1968, all the functions of my body stopped twice when I was going through 4.5 hours of kidney surgery, and I wasn't but 12 years old. Look at my healthy son today that's 13, and he's bigger than I am and he weighs about 85 pounds. So I was this real tiny 75-pound, 5-foot tops, little frail little kid that was split open from hip to hip. And I remember getting anesthesia, and I knew that there was a part of my consciousness that was still awake. And I remember telling the surgeon and the doctors in the operating room, don't come on me yet because I'm not completely out. Well, my body was out, but my mind and my spirit were not out. Next thing I know, I was rising through a ceiling. And as I rose through the ceiling, I remember hovering in a white cloud going, how in the heck am I up here without an airplane? I remember thinking that. Sitting on top of the cloud with his legs folded, not in full lotus position, but kind of Taylor fashion, big smile on his face like a Cheshire cat, was my soon-to-be mentor for many years, still is today, years later, almost 60 years later, still my mentor, talking about dedication. He's sitting there, and I hear this in my mind, little Lama, what's taking you so long? Little Lama, what's taking me so long? I remember hearing that now. Next thing I know, right beside him materializes Mother Mary and Jesus, the Christ. And I'm going, wait a minute, how does this fit in? And I'm thinking to myself, you look so different. And they introduced him. Jesus actually came up to me, touched my hand. So I would be real calm. Mary came and kissed me on the cheek. And she said, you're a little angel. And I said, I'm an angel. I said, have I died? And they said, no, you haven't died. You've got a long things to do and a long time to come before we're even negotiating that. And I said, negotiating? I didn't know that you could negotiate death. I'll never forget, Jesus said, my little brother, you can negotiate anything in Abba's kingdom. And I went, wow, I'm in Abba's kingdom, and I could hear celestial music and everything. They introduced me to Master Lama Rasaji. And as I got close to him, I felt this amazing peace. And they were there to assure me that meeting him and eventually training with him and being mentored with him for almost 6 decades would be okay. And they said, you came this time, like saying this time. I was saying, is there other time? I didn't realize anything about reincarnation at the time, but you came this time to set the record straight. About that moment, I remember hearing a tug on my body. Later, I would find out it was my silver cord, our psychic and biblical cord that attaches the astral body to the physical body. And I remember, oh my goodness, I'm supposed to go back in the body because they're having trouble keeping that body going. But I didn't want to go back in the body because I felt unbelievable free. And, I could travel at thought, at the speed of thought. I had no pains. I had no aches. And I had been going through about 2 years of a lot of aches and pains. It had gotten to the point that you could hear me scream when I went to the bathroom just to urinate, right? It was amazing 2 years that led up to the surgery. From 10 to 12, Lamaji suffered an enormous amount of discomfort. But I knew that something was going to happen, that God had a plan for me, just like he has for you and your family. And I'll never forget, I remember Bo Yang reaching and touching my heart. And then the next thing I knew, I was back in the operating room and I was placing my hand over the hand. And they were trying to get my heart to stop because it had stopped. And they couldn't get it to stop. And yet, when I touched my hand, Jesus had his hand on my shoulder in the spirit form, and Mary on my other shoulder. And Bo Yang had his hand right in the center of my back. And I remember I could feel their energy traveling through me into my hand. And the next thing I notice is that the body starts flapping around on the operating table like a lizard's tail being cut off. I'll never forget, the doctor says, he's coming too. He's coming around. Yes, he is. Well, I entered the body. I remember recovery. I was very sluggish because they had given me so much anesthesia that was pretty much almost the next day before I was even semi-conscious. And I remember kept wondering, was that real? Did that really happen? Did I really leave my body? Wow, if that's so, then we really do survive our body. You got to remember, I was torn between who I was spiritually, but I was still a kid at 12 years old. And I was now back in the body with more of a 12-year-old kid memory than being out of the body with this spirit that's eternal memory, right? But that would be the beginning of the change for me that would pattern my, that was in 1968. Where were you in 1968? A lot of you weren't even born yet. Or a lot of you hadn't even started on your journey yet. You haven't had that aha moment, that deja vu, the feeling of being somewhere that you've been before and remembering. But it would be about 7 to 8 years later where I'm sitting on the mountaintop doing my first 45-day renewal. That's right, like a lot of our people have done. That I'll be in the middle of that 45 days and there'll be no other human around me. And in that time period, I will remember that fear of death was no longer linked to me. I had experienced death and I had gone to heaven. But over the next 7 to 8 years, as I worked my way to Tibet on the mountaintop, after 5 years of training with Lamaji, almost 4 in America, and now I was at the end of my first year in Tibet, and I was becoming an adept. This was part of my adept certification. I was going to become the youngest adept in the history of the Lamasery. And I remember I'm sitting up there, not one soul, not my mom and my dad having any clue, no cell phone, no internet, no computer, no TV, no CNN, no Fox News. I'm up there and the mountains are my mirror. And I did not know that, but I'm in the very spot where Boganathar took tutelage from Melchizedek / Gorthness. The Boganathar Lao Tzu that the world knew is the famous Chinese philosopher meditated there for 40 to 50 years and woke up with Melchizedek's hands on him. And he says, now you are ready. So the master has appeared. Welcome to our new site here at circleofchi.com. You're going to find this is a beautiful home. Browse around, get to know the site. Whether you're a free member or want to become a private member or do some live classes with Master David, which includes in that membership, you get a live class every Friday with Lamaji. We're so happy that you've checked us out and joined us. It takes courage for transformation. Most people are comfortable staying where they're at, whether they're going through a rut or not. Are you ready to move forward in your life? Are you ready to transform your spirit, mind, and body into a quasar, into something super normal? If you are, you've landed on the right place. We say here, Baraka Bashai, which means may the blessings be to you and to your glorious family. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow on Thursday on the next episode of Rasaji Speaks. God bless you and your family. See you soon.